My name's Damian Brady. I work for a company called Octopus Deploy, but I'm not going to talk about Octopus Deploy at all today. In fact, I'm going to talk about a company I used to work for back when I was a junior to mid-level developer. And at the time, I was working in an organisation where I was one of two IT people, so we did everything. We didn't have a team of developers, and we didn't have a lot of process around things. It was very fly by the seat of your pants, ad hoc, no plans. But before that, the first job I had after university was at a government department, and that was the opposite. Everything was wrapped up in so much bureaucracy that you didn't really get anything done. Things hit your plate 2 months after the deadline. So I was really excited about working for this company, and for the purposes of this talk, I'm just going to call them the company, so nobody gets sued. And so I was really excited about working in this company. I thought that would be like a great middle ground between the overly bureaucratic government thing and the just do whatever you need to do right now thing. We'd be working for a dev team, or I'd be working for a dev team, which would do things properly, and we'd get stuff done, and it'd be a great addition to my career. About 2 months into working for this job, I realised that the reality wasn't quite so great. Basically, the entire development team spent their time frustrated and demotivated the entire time. We were constantly plagued by meetings we had to go to and interruptions, people coming to our desk adding new work. There was unexpected work that kept getting piled on, and emergency things, firefighting constantly. You never really got a run at the work you were supposed to be doing. So we couldn't really do our job because of all the stuff that was there. We even had a sales guy who used to come and talk to us after he'd sold a product and set a deadline. The first time we heard about this project was when he came and told us when we had to deliver it by. And that was a common thing. But it wasn't just the dev team who didn't like this environment, it was also the business team. As developers, our dev team missed every single deadline that we had, whether we set it or whether this sales guy set it. Our estimates sucked. There was no point asking us to estimate anything. And anytime any emergency work or things that had to happen straight away came up, we complained about that work. You're adding stuff on. It was a horrible place to work on both sides, really. And so 2 months in, I'm already looking for other jobs. And I kind of got a bit disillusioned about the whole industry, thinking, well, if this was, I built this thing up and 2 months in, it's terrible. Is every job going to be like this? And that's part of the reason I stuck around, because I thought, well, it's not going to be any better anywhere. But we fast forward about 2 years later, and everything is totally different. We are hitting all of our deadlines as a dev team. We're no longer afraid of the unexpected work that comes on and the interruptions and things like that. And we know that if we go to meetings, that they're going to be worthwhile meetings as well. And so what I want to talk about today are the changes that we made in that 2-year period to turn everything completely around. And I was lucky in that I came into the company when it was a terrible place to work. And when I left the company, everything was fantastic and I loved working there. And these changes weren't these big organisational culture shifts where everybody gets a new job and a new title, or because we implemented Scrum, although that did actually help a lot. They were really small changes, and all of them were focused around just letting us developers do our job. So, around the same time that I started working at this company, another guy started working, and his name was Damian, but that makes for terrible storytelling, so I'm going to call him Jason. He won't mind. So Jason, through a series of changes, he became our boss. And as a team of developers who were not very good at standing up for ourselves, Jason he became like a superhero for us. Right? He was the business guy who protected all of the developers from all of the stuff that happened in the rest of the company. So we started referring to him as having the superpower of Jason held the shit umbrella. Has anybody heard that term before, the shit umbrella? Yes. Search for it on Google, it's great. So basically what it means is he prevented all of the other shit that came from the rest of the business. He protected the developers from all of that stuff. Now I don't want to keep swearing, so I'm going to change that. He protected us from all the mud, right? And that has the convenient advantage of being a really nice acronym for the three main things that we found that stopped us from just getting our work done on a day-to-day. And those things were meetings, uncertainty with our work, and distractions and interruptions. So I'm going to talk about those three things today, and the small things we changed to let us kind of get our work done. So, when I talk about meetings, I'm not talking about, okay, there's 6 people now, we go into the boardroom, we have an hour-long meeting and stuff. I'm talking about basically anything which you would consider a meeting. So anything from an ad hoc one-on-one with your manager to discuss how you're going, through to like an all-hands meeting in a conference centre that goes for a week or something like that. So with that in mind, who here is required to go to some kind of meeting as part of their job? Yeah, so pretty much everybody's here. So I wanted to know whether my experiences were the same as everybody else's. So I actually published a survey, and some of you may know about this survey, some of you may have done it. And in this survey, I found that about 93% of people reported that yes, they are required to go to meetings as part of their thing. We got about 350 responses to the survey, so that doesn't make it scientific by any stretch, but it's at least a reasonable representation. And most of the people who answered the survey were in IT, most of them in software. That's mainly because of who I can reach, I suppose. And I just want to give a really quick shout out to a friend of mine who lives in Singapore. I'm good at a small number of things, and statistics is definitely not one of them. So Samar helped me get some facts out of this raw, massive thing of numbers. So little shout out to him. So 93% of people are required to go to meetings, right? And that works out, on average, people are spending a little under 7.5 hours a week in meetings. So if you map that on your week, you have your standard work week, and then you have your a little under 7.5 hours during that work week spent in meetings. And I'm not saying that this is unimportant time by any stretch. Meetings are really important. They're the perfect way to get the right people in the right room at the right time to make the right decisions, if they're done right. But if they're not, I'm sure everybody's been in a meeting before where they sit there and they've got their arms crossed and just can't wait for this thing to end. It's completely irrelevant. So that was definitely the case in some of the places that I've worked, and so I wanted to know in this survey as well whether that's the case for everybody else. So I asked people how much of the meeting time that they spend is relevant to them. And on average, 37% of meeting time is not relevant to the person in that meeting. And this is across everybody. It's not just the developer, that meeting time is not relevant to the developer. It's also the business guy spends 37% of his meeting time in irrelevant meetings. And in fact, about a third of the people, so a little under this, felt that they spent more time in a relevant meeting than time in relevant meetings. So more of their time was spent in stuff that didn't matter to them, for about a third of people. And if you map that against our week, you've got this big red area of irrelevant meeting time. To put a money figure on that as well, because there's a little bit of a question about this, that's about a little under $8,000 per year per person on average. That's US dollars as well, so that's probably like 40-something thousand New Zealand. I'm Australian, so it parodies. But that's a lot of money. Like, that's every person in the company. You can expect maybe about $8,000 a year spent on meetings that are not relevant to their job. The next question I wanted to know was about how people ran their meetings. So, do the meetings they run actually have a clear goal? And do those meetings achieve that goal? So in other words, when you walk into a meeting, do you know what that meeting is for? And when you walk out of the meeting, did you meet whatever goal that was? So 38% of all meeting time was without goals. So in other words, 38% of the time people walk into a meeting and not really know what it's for. It's not clear what it's for. And in terms of the remaining 62% of meetings that do have a clear goal, about 35% of that, they don't meet those goals. So we're left with about 40% of the time But 40% of meeting time is spent in meetings with a clear goal that is achieved at the end of the meeting, which is reasonably disappointing. So again, you map this to our week, and there's a big red chunk of time that is spent either in meetings that don't have a clear goal, or do have a clear goal and it's not met by the end of it. And I'm sure we've all been in this meeting, I definitely know I have. Again, to put some money on that, $13,500 US a year per person spent in meetings that either don't have goals or don't meet those goals. Now, it's a little more difficult to say that this is wasting time. Right? We've been in meetings before where you just kind of meet and it's a regular thing and some awesome stuff comes out of it. So I'm not saying that all of this time is completely wasted. And sometimes it's difficult to work out whether it is wasted time or not. One of the kind of rules of thumb that I think is useful is to in judging whether a meeting is worthwhile or not, is when you walk out of the meeting, work out what's changed as a result of that meeting. So if you have a meeting that goes for an hour and all you're doing is complaining about how you're way behind on your schedule and this person's going to be away next week and all of this kind of stuff, and then you walk out of your meeting and nothing changes, the schedule stays as it is, and the client doesn't hear that it's late, you're still 80% done, which you were from 20% into the project, you're 80% done all the way through. If nothing changes, then you may as well have not had that meeting. It's not useful. So back at this company that I joined, that I was really excited about joining, we had a big problem with meetings. We spent a lot of our time in meetings, particularly status meetings, and status meetings are a bit of a killer, where you have a weekly meeting to go over the status of a project. And then at the end of it, you just go, wow, yeah, our project's way behind. Okay, next time. So the first thing that Jason did for us as our new manager, he clamped down on these meetings, right? And the first thing he did is he made sure that the meetings, every meeting we went to had a clear goal. And he did that a couple of ways, and I'll talk about some of the techniques for that in a sec. But every meeting had to have a clear goal before we went in, and we had to have been able to work out whether that meeting succeeded afterwards. I'm smelling electrical burning here, by the way. Remember the fire thing? That's how dark that way. I'm just going to keep talking. Somebody tell me if something lights on fire. So he clamped down on these meetings. Meetings had to have a goal, and they had to meet that goal. The other thing he did, which was quite cool, is he went to our meetings for us. You know how I was talking about distractions? I'm not but fire is definitely a distraction. There's a quick fix for that though. So one other thing that Jason did is Jason went to our meetings for us. And what I mean by that is we used to have these status meetings for this project where all 10 developers would sit in a room for an hour and 9 of us would sit there bored out of our brains while everybody talked about stuff we already knew because we're doing daily stand-ups, right? And just sharing that information with the manager. And then we get up and we all go back to our desk. That's relatively wasted time. Yeah. Projector?
Sorry guys. Might just turn that one off.
So if you just direct your attention to the not on fire. Alright, we're just going to continue. Let's just ignore the fire for a second. So Jason went to this meeting for us. Basically, we realised that having everybody in this meeting room was not a great use of our time. It was stopping us from getting our day-to-day work done. And it meant that we were pulled out of the task we were employed to do. We're not employed to sit in a meeting being bored. We're employed to write code, right? So he made a few changes. And here's an example of, for example, a meeting that, or a meeting invitation, which is a little bit light, of something before Jason made his changes, and then an example of afterwards. So you can see a few changes here. Number one, which is an awesome idea, is that the title of the meeting or the subject of the meeting is a question. That's an awesome way of working out whether you've achieved a goal in a meeting. If the title is a question, when you walk out of there, do you answer that question? If so, then yeah, you've met the goal of the meeting. We can see that it's not the whole dev team in there anymore. It's Jason and the project manager rather than the whole dev team. Everybody else can keep working. You'll also maybe notice that there's an optional person in there, Sarah, one of the developers. And we use that optional tag to say to Sarah, look, we might need you for a few minutes during this meeting. Just because we need your input in a meeting doesn't mean you have to be there the entire time. Right? So that said to Sarah, look, you don't need to come to this meeting, but just be aware we might call on you for 5 minutes. You come in, share what you need to share, and then go back to your work. So that was really powerful as well. And obviously there's an agenda there. It's really clear what the meeting is going to do. What's there first and what's there last. And especially at the end, having to-dos, like explicit things, this is what we need to do. I can do this without slide.
Nothing looks very close.
Okay, cool.
You're in the front, by the way.
Yeah. The other thing you might notice as well is we've changed it from an hour meeting to a 45-minute meeting. Nothing says that meetings have to go for half an hour or an hour. Right? So we experimented a little bit with the timing of meetings. And you know, that saves a little bit of time each meeting. And meetings have this tendency to expand to fill the size of the container. Right? If you have an hour-long meeting, that meeting will go for an hour. If you make that same meeting 20 minutes, then it'll probably go for 20 minutes and you'll still cover it. So playing with the meeting time is good as well. So a few specific things here. Have a clear goal and an agenda for every meeting. We sent a representative rather than sending the entire development team. Right? Everybody else could just do their job. One other thing we did is we avoided gimmicks a little bit. For a while we were doing things like in daily stand-ups, one person had a Nerf gun, and if you went off topic, you shot them with the Nerf gun, which is fun, right? And there's also the plank meetings. Instead of the stand-ups, you do it in a plank position, and they are really short. And so they're great for reducing meeting time, but it's a little bit like taking a painkiller every single morning because you always wake up with a headache, right? You're treating the symptom, but maybe you need to go and see a doctor. So we tried to avoid these gimmicks. We changed the meeting times as well and experimented a little bit with what the appropriate time for a meeting would be. And mainly, we analysed all of these meetings and we reserved the right to not go to a meeting if it wasn't going to be worthwhile. So we ditched the meetings that weren't valuable. So just these small changes, and a lot of them driven by Jason, but a lot of them driven by our own team as well, made a big difference to what was happening. But we still got distractions, right? So meeting times, kind of formal, yes, stop doing your work, go and sit in a meeting, record for an hour. But there are also distractions like people coming up to your desk and asking you to do some work, or Slack. And by the way, I'm completely hypocritical about this. I'm in like 10 Slack teams or something, and I check it regularly, and I have Twitter open with 5 accounts, and so I'm very distractible, I think. Things are on fire and I get distracted. I'm not dead yet, I'm over here. So again, I wanted to know whether distractions were a problem for everyone else as well. So I asked in this survey, how many times on average are you interrupted per day? And interestingly, I set a maximum of 50 and when I asked this question, and within the first couple of hours I had a couple of people say, that maximum is way too low, can you increase it? So I didn't really think that was possible, but about nearly 60% of people are interrupted 10 or more times in a day, which is a huge number. And in fact, on average, people spend about, even if it's just a 1-minute interruption, people will spend about 12% of their day being interrupted on average, which is a lot of the day. And again, if we apply that to a week, you can see we're shortening this available green period where we're allowed to just do our work, just with these interruptions. And once again, interruptions don't necessarily mean that it's wasted time, right? But especially for developers, who's a developer, by the way? So probably about half, I think. Yeah. So especially with developers, but also with a lot of other industries, I'm just talking from a developer point of view, being able to have a focus and get into a flow state or get into the zone is really, really important. You're much, much, much more productive if you can focus on something without being interrupted constantly. So getting into this focus state and not being interrupted out of it is something that you really want to do as well. And so I wanted to know as well whether everybody actually gets into this flow state to start off with, so whether people are focused. And I found that about 40% of people will say they're regularly focused and absorbed in their work. But nearly everybody, like 98.7% or something, said that at least some of the time in a usual day they're focused and in on their work. But the problem comes with these interruptions. And so I asked, when you lose this focus, how often is it because of an interruption? And about 35% of the time, when people are focused and they lose that focus, it's because they've been interrupted. And so that's a problem, right? If you're much more productive during this focused time, but interruptions break you out of that focus, that can be a bit devastating towards your productivity. Microsoft did some research a while ago. They did a diary study and found that it usually takes about 23 minutes to get your focus back if you're interrupted and you lose that focus. So we're not just talking about that 1 minute interruption and then you're back in focus. There's about a 20-minute delay where you're not as productive as you were before. And so even if 1 in 20 of these interruptions results in that loss of focus, we're kind of like breaking this this available time to just do your work into much smaller. There's a lot less time available. And again, just to put a money value on it, it's about 25 grand a year US per person spent because of interruptions or wasted because of interruptions. So if you have a dev team of 4 people, then that's 100 grand a year that you're wasting because people are getting interrupted. So back at the company, we realized that this was a problem and we needed to let developers just do their job because they're much more effective if they can get this clear run at the tasks they're supposed to be doing. So once again, Jason came to the rescue and he made sure that there were things in place that let us concentrate. And you've probably seen some of these techniques before. Number one we did was allowing headphones. We were in an open office, right? So cubicle walls that were like this high. So may as well not have been there, just to separate the human resources, right? So when you had your headphones on, you weren't to be interrupted. And that was just the general rule. Don't interrupt a person if they have their headphones on. We even had people with headphones on that weren't plugged into it, just because they knew that was the rule. So there's a few places that do this, I know. We also experimented with do not disturb times. So explicit times in the day where you do not come and interrupt the developers because they're busy working. Don't tap on the glass because they're... and even having little signs and things like that to say, I'm in the middle of something, please don't interrupt me. We also implemented a thing which was kind of fun, and it's not as rude as it sounds, although it does feel quite rude when doing it, called the finger. Right? So if you're sitting there working and somebody has a question for you, rather than coming up tapping you on the shoulder and asking you a question, they would approach your desk and stand a couple meters away, and if I'm in the middle of something, I'll just go like that, and that person will walk away and I'll come and find you later when I've got a chance. Even better, if they can write a note, just on a post-it note about what it is and just stick it somewhere, not on your desk, somewhere where you can't read it because it's really tempting just to have a glance at it. So somewhere else, and I'll come back and talk to you about it when I can. So that was pretty effective as well. But that didn't always prove to be enough. You still got interruptions sometimes. So we took the advice of Mr. Miyagi, who said the best way to avoid a punch is no be there. So we did that. We let our developers no be there. And what that means is if you really don't want to be interrupted, take your laptop or whatever it is that you're using and go to a meeting room and lock the door. Even better, go around the corner and go to a cafe. Like, you can't be interrupted if you're not there to be interrupted. And when you do that, it helps even more if you go dark. And this is something that we do at Octopus a lot of the time. We'll see on the chat window, hey, I'm going to go dark for a couple of hours, I need to work this thing out. And what that means is they close their email, they close their Slack, they close everything. And they just focus on that task. So they're offline, you can't talk to them anymore. If you're around at a cafe with everything turned off, you can't get interrupted. You can get a clear run of these things. And the company is going to survive without you there for an hour. Trust me. So just these little things that we did meant that we started getting these clear runs of an hour or two at a time doing this work without worrying about interruptions. So that was really valuable for us as well. The last thing we had, though, was uncertainty with our work. So we've done a lot to kind of let ourselves get a clear run and let ourselves just do our job. But then the question comes, well, what is the most important thing that I should be doing now as well? We want to be allowed to do our job, but we also want to be clear on what the job is. So again, back to the survey, I asked people how clear they were on their work priorities. How clear are you on what you should be doing right now? And the results were actually more positive than I thought they would be. About 82% of people said, yep, I'm clear on what I should be doing right now. The problem here is what happens when that changes. And this is something I've had problems with in the past. And so I asked, how often do those priorities that you're so clear on, how often do they change before you can finish what you're supposed to be doing? I'm seeing a few people nodding going, yeah. Nearly 60% of nearly 60% of people, their top priority changes before they can finish it more than half the time. So more than half the time, they start some work and then it gets pulled away from them before they can finish it. And this is a problem not just for feeling good about your job, it's a problem with motivation. So has anybody read a book by Daniel Pink called Drive? A couple of hands. If you don't want to read the book, just do what I did, watch the 12-minute TED Talk. But it's all about what motivates us in our work. And there's 3 key ingredients to being motivated at work, and that's autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So autonomy is, do you have the ability to make decisions, or is somebody just telling you, okay, do this now, here's a spec, write back over please. So you need some autonomy in your work. You need the ability to master your work as well. You need to be able to get better at it and do a better job, improve. And there's also purpose. So purpose is really just, is the work you're doing actually going to lead to anything? And this is where these interruptions and these changes in priority really start to hit your motivation. If half the time you start some work and you know that you're not going to be able to finish it before you're just thrown on to something else, that does horrible things for your motivation and therefore for your happiness. There was a British study by the Social Market Foundation last year as well that found that if you're happy and motivated in your job, then you're 12% more productive. So it's not just, do I enjoy going to my job? It's a physical productivity thing that you can kind of sell to your managers to say, look, I need the ability to finish my work. So back at this company, Jason really helped with this as well. So he tried to make sure that we could get clear runs at our work, and if there was something we were doing, we were allowed to finish it without having to, can you just quickly do this? So he basically, the first thing he did is he helped us acknowledge this work that wasn't planned. And this is something that we weren't doing previously. We were just like, every week we were, how come we didn't get as much stuff done? And you can't change what you can't measure. So we started measuring the work we were doing. We started adding to our sprint board every other little bit of information, or every other little bit of work that we were doing with a different coloured post-it, which was green, which was probably a portrait. So we put that up there, just at least at the end of the sprint we could say, look at all this stuff that we didn't expect to have to do, but that's what we're ending up doing. He also established a bit of a gate. So he was the gatekeeper there, and if there was new work that had to come up, something really urgent, and that work came up, the person in the business would have to go to Jason first. And Jason would have a talk with them about how important it was. And only if he decided it was important would he pass it on to the dev team. So that meant that, for the most part, we were protected again from the mud that happened from the business. We'd only find out about these things when they were important enough to find out about, and otherwise we wouldn't even hear about it. The last thing we did, which was quite cool, is make the requester responsible. So this is cool. We had these additional tasks, but that wasn't really enough. Somebody could come in and say, hey, I need you to do this, write it down, do whatever you're doing, I'll go back to my job. What we started doing is when somebody came and said, we have this extra work for you, we would sit down with them and we would write it on the green post-it note and put our estimate, 5 story points, for example. And then you would hand that person the post-it note, walk them over to the sprint board and say, here's this sprint, take 5 off if you want to put yours on and move it into the we're not going to get this done. And by making that person make the decision about what you weren't going to do as a result of the stuff they added, it's amazing how often that suddenly wasn't as important as they thought. So that was quite good. We also learned to trust our metrics. So if our velocity was 10 story points a week, then we actually did 10 story points a week. We're really good as developers at saying, oh, well, yeah, we didn't do much this week, but that was because of something or other else, so it'll be different next week. But no, you need to trust your metrics, and it's all about being honest about what work you can physically do in a normal week. So just those things as well led to some great bits of productivity. So these are the kind of the 3 things that we attacked, and you'll notice that there's no big, massive changes and things like that. They're all just small little things that we implemented that basically turned everything around because we were now able to sit there for long periods of time and do our work. So meetings had a clear purpose, and we ditched all the meetings that didn't have a clear purpose. We were much more certain about what our work was and aware of these unexpected tasks that came up as well, which meant that we could plan properly and our estimates were better and our targets got hit. And then our distractions as well, we were able to get out of that area where we were going to be distracted. We were allowed to have a clear run and just do our work. So that was really powerful. Now, a lot of this worked because we had Jason. But you may not have a Jason in your organization. But very, very few of those little tips require having a manager on top. You can be the representative in the meeting, or you can be the one who says, no, the dev team has this headphone policy now. Everybody has to abide by it. So what I'm saying is, even though we had this person guiding us, this superhero guiding us, you don't need that to get this stuff working. You can do it, start doing it yourself. And in other words, you can be the shit umbrella that you want to see in the world. And that's what I have. Any questions?
We've got, 1 or 2 minutes.
Questions not about the fire? Yep.
What would happen if Jason left?
What do I think would happen if Jason left? Look, that's an interesting question because Jason left 2 weeks before I left. So when Jason left though, from all reports, I'm still friends with a lot of people at this company, and that culture continued because it wasn't just, it was Jason who helped us drive that culture, but by the time it was embedded, everybody could see how beneficial that was, especially from the business side. They're like, well, you guys never hit your targets before. I didn't know it at the time, but around the start of this time when everybody hated each other, the company was seriously considering outsourcing all of the software development and just ditching the whole development arm. At the end of it, the company was talking about ditching the rest of the company and just making it a software shop. That's how much it changed. So everybody by that point was very sold on the whole cultural change. So it was supported at a whole company level, which was awesome. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, especially with the finger thing, how do you actually go about implementing that? Because it can seem rude and people can take offense to it. I think it was just a communication thing. We made it very, very clear that that was the occasion where you could tell somebody their boss because you were in the middle of something. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't awkward a lot of the time. And just because you're sitting there and you put your finger up, if that person says, you know what, I don't care what you're doing, what I need to talk to you about now is much more important, then you can still go up and tap them on the shoulder. But you're right, it was hard to get lost with the thing that you were allowed to do. That one was probably the hardest thing, at least within our team, to get used to. Yeah, it's the best one. You can extend it, we use this feedback, right? It's probably worse. It's save that for that side, right?
Time for one more.
Last question?
I'm a developer, and the no be there thing, I like to no be there for 8 hours. Did you have to agree limits to that behaviour, like actually being able to then come back and be on the track and deal with the
Yeah, do we have to put limits on the no be there side?
Did you agree that people would be away for 8 hours a day?
Yeah, so how do we agree that people wouldn't, no be there for 8 hours? Ultimately, like, so towards the end, it became a trust thing. You knew that nobody was going to go dark for 8 hours, 5 days a week, because everybody trusted each other. But at least initially, it was a harder sell. It was people tend to overestimate the impact of things just in general. There's a really good TED talk on that as well. I spent a lot of time listening to TED. So I don't have any sources. It's just a video on the internet told me. People have a tendency to overestimate how much impact there is. So the idea of somebody being away from their desk for an entire day, people are like, oh, there's no way that this can work. Like, how can we cope with that? In reality, it kind of works. And look, if somebody's around the corner at a cafe or if they're at home, you can still probably contact them if everything's going wrong. Like, if part of the building's on fire, you can probably get hold of them if you absolutely need to. But yeah, it's a little bit hard at the start. So we didn't put any hard limits on it. Jason kind of managed that and said, look, you need to work on this thing, just be over there for a while. But you may have to. I can see scenarios where you might want to say, look, for the first half of the day, yeah, go and do your stuff, but later on in the day you need to be available. So we didn't do it. Right. Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Mr.